getting Heidi on the line with us, and I'm going to make some introductions. We're 1 minute till go time. And do you guys want the link? I'll email you the actual link right now. You know, if you wanted to share, you're welcome to.
Yeah, people in my Facebook group were wondering what the link was.
Okay, we'll have it. Heidi on the line with us, and okay, my link is here. Okay, and I put a little description. It's all in your inboxes right now if you want to head there. We're 1 minute from the live time, and you guys all have that. Okay, let's get this show on the road. Okay. So it is 5 o'clock, and it is time for Diana and Scott Talk Travel. And today is a super special day because I have a number of my very close friends that decided to join us. And I am going to do less talking and let everyone introduce themselves. And I'm going to actually turn over a lot of the moderation to Spud, although he has got to go a little early, but because Spud knows more about travel than I do, as does Gary for sure. And Savannah just came from a great road trip. And there's my mother-in-law. So here we go. Spud, take it away.
Hey, thanks, Scott. You know, I think this is a great idea to do, was to just talk travel as we're easing back into it slowly and safely. There are people are coming back with stories, and we've been missing people's stories for so long for this stuff. We really all desperately want to travel again, but until we get a chance, sometimes vicariously is the best way. And we're going to get to hear some people's stories today. Since I haven't traveled much, I will be looking forward to hearing stories from the amazing Gary Arndt and from Heide Brandt. And I'm pretty sure Scott has traveled a little bit. So, you know, we might have a story or two there. So I guess what we're looking for is, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be all happy fun time, but we're looking for some positive stories about people now traveling and how it is you did it and what's changed a little. Were there any surprises that you were unexpected? And I think probably the easiest place to go, because I know he's had a little bit of a chance to travel and is probably one of the most traveled people here, is to ask Gary. Gary, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Have you done any traveling lately, Gary?
None.
Really? None at all?
Zilch, zip, zero, nada. I have an opportunity that just came up last week where I might be able to go to the Azores within the next month, and it really kind of surprised me. And so now I'm spending a lot. Normally, I would get an invitation like this. I'd be like, okay, I'm ready. Let's go. And, you know, just hop on the plane and go. And now it's like, oh, where do I get a COVID test? Well, what's the procedure for this? You know, I got to find a clinic and I got to do it within 72 hours before I get on the flight. And then I need the documentation. And so I'm doing all this stuff right now, looking into it. I think I'll go. My concern isn't getting it from someone there because they have 0 cases. My concern is me bringing it with me. That's my bigger concern, but they're inviting me and they're kind of open for business and for travelers. So, yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now. And there's just a whole bunch of stuff surrounding what would otherwise be a really simple trip that I'm having to go through.
Yeah. They're one of the, what, I don't know, 6 to 10 countries that actually decide to let Americans in right now for leisure, because I guess everybody else has pretty much said we're too much of a risk, which is understandable because in a lot of ways we are. If you do the Azores, or actually, better question, if you don't do the Azores, if you were to travel on your own of your own volition, where would you be going? I know you've got a lot of different projects about UNESCO heritage sites and national parks. Where would you go next if you had your choice?
I'm like 5 national parks away from visiting all 61 national parks. And the parks that I've left are really simple. They're not hard. So and 3 of them are in California. So I got to go to Channel Islands, Sequoia, Kings Canyon, and then Big Bend, and then US Virgin Islands. And then I've been to all of them. So I got the hard ones out of the way. So that was my goal, to complete that this year. And then, well, 2020 happened. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that this year, but hopefully next year.
Nice. Nice.
I love
And
that you
just want to
mentioned that.
take one brief moment to introduce everyone that's in the room here. We all know Diana.
Who may have traveled the most
during the. Although I suspect that that Jeffrey or Savannah and Heidi, but Robert is a returning contestant. He's one of our longtime customers, and Heidi, it was brought to the table by you, Spud, and we've done a little research. We understand you're a belly dancer.
I am actually when I'm not traveling and when I'm not riding, I'm a professional belly dancer in Oklahoma City as well. And I teach belly dancing, so that's fun. But to talk to Gary, it was in the Azores, not this year, of course, but about a year or so ago. And I'm very excited that you're going there, because I had never heard of the Azores until I went, and you're going to love it. If you can safely get there. And so I'm really excited to know which one of the Azores you're going to.
I don't know yet. So.
Oh, okay. I was on Tercera, and it was delightful. It was a place with no police force. It was just one of the safest, kind of craziest, wonderful places I think I've ever been, and lots of cows, very good food.
So yeah, I want to introduce Savannah as well. Savannah's got some of the best content you can imagine, most authentic. I've been friends with Savannah for forever and a day. I think you're muted, or I can't hear you much. But
I'm here. Hopefully,
okay.
Hello,
And she's done some really inspirational travel, and I'm anxious for Spud to dig into that a little bit and say hi, Savannah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to join you all. Love seeing all these smiling traveler faces. I have to tell you, it's refreshing to have a positive conversation like this. Gary, I just want to jump on the back of what you were talking about with the national parks. Fellow national park fan here. I suspect everybody is. And my solution to the insanity that came from living alone as someone who spent 80% of their time on the road pre-COVID was to drive around the Western United States and go to as many national parks as I could this summer. Nice. So I safely, socially distanced, hiked with the mask on everywhere, and managed to go from Joshua Tree all the way up to Glacier and all through Olympics, North Cascades, and Rainier, and back down through. Awesome. So really recommend, if anyone's listening right now, or if y'all are thinking you kind of got that itch, summer's coming to a close and you don't know what to do, go on a cool hiking trip. The campgrounds, they've really lessened the amount of people that can camp. There was a lot more regulation this year. It was not crowded. A lot of the trails are one way. And it's a really nice way to forget that we're in the middle of this mania for a few hours.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. And it's actually really good to meet you, because I don't know if we've met at some point or not, but
I'm not sure that we've met IRL. I feel like we've just been in Scott's circle, so we would have maybe
that's pretty much it. Yeah, no. And actually, Scott, I don't know Jeffrey all that well. We may have met, but I don't.
Jeffrey's amazing. I've known Jeffrey for a number of years. He's the chairman of the C-Suite Network, and he was on The Apprentice, and he was the former chief marketing officer for, believe it or not, Polaroid, I believe.
Oh, Kodak.
Kodak. Oh my God. All right.
Tomato.
But he is a super interesting and connected guy.
Like saying Miller and Bud. It's the same thing. No. Yeah. No, so Spud, we've not had the chance to meet, although a big fan and, of course, a traveler. I'm kind of one of those business travelers who travels at least 250 to 300 days a year, in terms of travel. And so just done. I'm still doing a lot of traveling, even with this crap going on. You still have to do some business. You still have to do some things. I own C-Suite Radio, which is a podcast network, C-Suite TV. And so we're growing and moving. So yeah, still doing it.
That's great. I mean,
Was just in Maine. Was just in Maine to go see my daughter get engaged. And so, and Savannah, I went on a hike, but without a mask because I'm going outside and I'm going, yeah, come on. And, you know, and a woman was passing by me 20 yards away going, you don't have a mask. I go, we're outside, move over. There's an entire country over there. You can go. So
I think it all depends on the space on the trail. Totally.
Yeah.
Feel you.
Well,
I'm alone.
trust me,
I
we
mean,
were
if
in
you look at
Maine
my
and we were
videos-
20 yards away and there was
Yeah,
not, and
exactly.
the wind was blowing, you know, the other way. So it was like, oh, well, relax. I'm from South Dakota.
Yeah.
Well, we've been practicing physical distancing since 1889. So we know about physical distancing. So everybody should lighten up a little bit.
where else have you gone, Jeffrey?
Well, I was in LA when the riots kicked off, the night the riots kicked off. I was there for business, doing some things, but New York, Florida, Denver, had to go to Denver. So different things. Sometimes I'll fly private or take the airlines, because the airlines have actually been fairly good. If you've flown on the airlines, they're about, some of them are a little fuller than others, you know, but with their limited schedule. But I mean, today my partner flew from Orange County all the way to Philadelphia today for a round trip ticket of $214.
Whoa!
Wow.
So,
Nice.
I mean, that's what the fares are. The fares are just unbelievable right now. And of course, you get to pick your seat, and you can be, you know, I've seen that most of the planes have been about 60 to 70% full. And I was on one flight that was almost completely full. I thought they were going to overbook it, but you know.
What would you say is the most distinctly different thing about travel right now from your perspective?
The eerie quiet. You know, when you walk into an airport, it is though you've stepped into it at 4:30 in the a.m. and nothing's open, except it's the middle of the afternoon.
Yeah.
And I think that is the most disturbing piece. I will tell you, I think the airlines have done an unbelievable job. When you get on a plane, they hand you a little clean thing, they hand you this, they hand you that. They've shut down although now they just started bringing back the open drinks and things like that. But yeah, but they give you wipes to clean with. Everybody's got it is the nicest time to fly right now, because everyone, for the most part, is very cordial to one another. And very nice. And it just seems that. Now, I know that's not always the case everywhere. I mean, I think this has also caused a lot of craziness as well, you know, where people are just flipping out. I do think we're seeing a lot of that. I think we're going to see more of that. But I will tell you that I was very impressed by the airlines. I mostly fly United, but I was very impressed with how well they cleaned. I've never seen a plane cleaner than I've seen it. And we all know what we're talking about. And normally you put down the tray and you go, oh my God, who's been there before, you know? But now it seems as though they're doing a lot more of that. And I think everywhere is doing that. So that's a positive thing, I would say. But it's just eerie. I mean, Diane, I don't know if you've done that, but it's just, oh my gosh, Starbucks isn't. I mean, Starbucks isn't even open in the airport. You know, there's a freaking problem, you know? Yeah.
But the question is, the important question is, are the airport bars open? That's really truly
they're limited. It's off and on. Yeah, Heidi, it's off and on, isn't it? Yeah, some are, some aren't. The big chains are not. If they're I've seen them. If they're independent, they are. And then the club. No, the club. I was thinking about in LA, the club. I went into the 1K club or whatever, the club. And no, they weren't serving drinks. And then normally they have a food buffet and all that stuff. Nope, they got a cellophane wrapped apple maybe, or cheese in cellophane. You know, it's all prepackaged stuff, so it's not like it was by any. And it's okay.
That, or they have like, oh, I'm sorry, like they have a seat.
Go ahead, Diana.
Yeah, I flew Delta round trip, Chicago to Salt Lake to Sun Valley. I had to go visit Scott and my darling daughter. But and the Delta Club in Chicago was closed, but this Delta Club in Salt Lake City was open. And usually there are hundreds of people there. There were 7 people there.
Yeah.
And I was there for 3 hours. And as you say, everything's wrapped in cellophane, but the bar was open. And that was busy with 6 people. I did not drink.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the planes were,
There were 4
Delta
people.
planes were empty.
4 people
Yeah.
in the LAX club
Yeah.
for United. 4
The
people.
only thing I will say about the cellophane is stay away from the airport sushi. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
That was a good rule pre-COVID, by the way.
Yeah, that was a good rule pretty much all the time. Hey, Heidi, I've been seeing you in a lot of places on Instagram and Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
Give us an example of one of your better trips lately.
I think it was July, went out to Southeast Alaska for a deep sea fishing trip. And it was a press trip, but it was one of those that was, typical. It was my first big trip since COVID hit. And I had to have a COVID test within 72 hours of landing in Alaska, presented that. And then there was 4 of us on the boat, and we're all women. So all of us had negative tests. It was very remote. And I've been on, I would say about 5 press trips since about May now.
Wow.
And most of them are really, well, they're all domestic, of course. But all of them are geared towards outdoor activities, hiking, kayaking, fishing, outdoor.
That's your specialty anyway, isn't it, sort of?
Yeah, it's, the adventure. So, to me, that was like, okay, this is very natural, but, just flying, like he was saying, I mean, flying at first was like, how's this gonna go? And it was very pleasant. I mean, wearing a mask on a 6-hour flight, nobody wants to do that, but it's not miserable. It's not terrible. And they give you the little wipes, and sometimes they give you the little bag with a bottle of water and some cookies. Sometimes they don't, and you have to take your own food. But for the most part, the middle seats are always empty, at least on the flights I've been. I know there have been other airlines that don't do that, but I feel very comfortable flying right now. I mean,
Okay.
it's not something that worries me, so to speak.
You were also up in, I saw pictures from that fishing trip. What was the largest fish you caught up there?
I caught a 58-inch halibut, which was actually
Whoa!
yeah, I know.
That's as big as I am, I think.
I know.
Is that even a thing? I mean,
I should have called up
keep it
pictures of
because we
this.
didn't have the commercial tag. At that point, it becomes a commercial fish, and we had to throw it back. But I was like, ugh. But I came back with 40 pounds of fillets of lingcod, halibut, coho salmon, and king salmon. It was quite literally one of the best trips I think I've ever been on.
Great
I've been eating
time.
Nice.
for days.
Where did you
months.
fish? Where did you fish out of, Heidi?
We were right out of Ketchikan, and it was
Oh,
a place called Steamboat Bay. It's a kind of one of those high-end exclusive fishing clubs, which I would never be able to afford by myself if I wasn't a travel journalist. But they were very kind to invite us out there, and it was amazing. I have never been to Alaska before. I've been all over the world, but I've never been in Alaska. I've never been to Maine, by the way. But it was the first big trip of the year. It had so many canceled this year. So it was something that, I was a little wary at first, but I'm glad I went. And now that I've gone, it's kind of like breaking the seal. I'm not quite as wary, but like you, I'm worried about passing it myself. So as soon as I come home from a trip, and before I go on a trip, I get a COVID test. In Oklahoma City, we have those 24-hour tests, which is really, really handy.
Yeah, I haven't really traveled much at all, except for a road trip up to Southern Oregon, where we were staying with people who are in our core group anyway. But also, neither my wife or I have had a COVID test yet. We're sort of waiting until the pressure's off. We want to make sure everybody who really needs one, we've been really careful. I'd almost like, an antibody test, because we thought we had something back in January where we coughed our heads off for a month, but who
Might
knows?
have.
Yeah, might have. Savannah, of the parks you went to, what was your best experience? And was it changed because almost nobody's out there?
Yeah, I would say so. Well, this conversation is about to take an interesting turn. So I've been been promoting body positivity and mental health. Wow, excuse me. Throughout all of this, geez, I'm not emotional. I promise. It's just been smoky in California, so forgive me.
Yeah.
That's where I am. I'm here in San Francisco. And so I've been taking some very artful nudes in the national parks. And you can see these on my Instagram at @SavvySavvy, totally shameless, nothing super inappropriate, just my butt. But I think being in Glacier National Park and Crater Lake and some places that are historically kind of popular, it's not always easy to be running around taking your clothes off on some of the more iconic hikes and iconic vistas. And I think for me, the ability to be that level of free, and for the record, I was definitely not wearing my mask while nude, on the pandemic trail, I really felt like I got to find myself again, and I felt like I got to reconnect with nature. And I mean, I'm out there all by myself with the bear spray. I'm a solo female camper. So there's a lot of empowerment that goes along with that. And I think I love that we're talking about some of the travelers and the kindness within the travel community right now, because I very much experienced that on the trail, at the campground, talking to rangers, any situation. Everyone was super nice. The folks who are willing to travel right now, that are choosing to by choice, especially or for work, whatever, but are comfortable with it, we're like the best travelers. It's all the really nice people who have good gear, who are prepared, who aren't going to damage the wildlife and respect everything. So I honestly, I grew up closest to Yosemite. I'm used to national parks being just flooded with human beings, like ants on jelly. And the ability to not only drive in and out of these places, as well as hike around and liberate myself to a degree, was incredibly refreshing. And I do think that it's a different mood and a different vibe. And I certainly hear that from the rest of the folks on this wonderful panel. You're all great, by the way. There's a different vibe in the travel world right now. And it's kind of nice. Like, we're not all just the snots going up to first class. Not to say anything wrong with that. Proud to be that person most of the time. But I think it's also nice to see folks in a very different kind of cadence and speed. We're all a lot less rushed too, because I think there's way less, we're not constrained in the same way. So I've noticed that too. I've noticed a really calming slowdown. No one's fighting me to get ice at the campsite. We're all taking our time.
Yeah,
cool.
No, and that's great to hear. That's amazing to hear. And I should first say that you and Heide should have a separate conversation, because Heidi once wrote a terrific story on Naked Hiking Day.
Yes!
So
I'm here for it, Heidi.
And I've read the story. There is a thing. It's called Naked Hiking Day. And
we sell clothing. We're clothing sellers, so I'm anti-naked hiking.
Well, maybe
we
those
have to get from the car to the spot of nudity.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny what you say about timing of things, about the rushing. I had a boss who once wrote a column. This is John Flynn, my old boss. He wrote a column about the apogee of a trip. And if you understand the apogee of a rocket, the apogee is the point at which it stops going up and starts coming down. Well, everybody has an apogee of their trip, except possibly Gary, who just left home for 10 years. But you have an apogee where you're going, the moment at which you're starting to think more about the trip being over than about the being in the place at the time, that's called the apogee right there. Well, guess what? We have a completely different concept of time right now.
For better or for worse, this is the silver lining.
Yeah, I mean, the last 6 months was 6 years long, and going to a park where you don't have to be back at your job tomorrow, I'm sure that's very freeing as far as the apogee goes. You know who we haven't heard from quite yet is Robert. Have you had a chance to do any travel so far? Or if not, are there places that you'd like to go when it's possible?
No, I haven't done any traveling because I'm 48 years type 1 diabetic, and if I get COVID, I'm dead. So,
Yeah.
and also when I was a child, now Diana might remember this. She's old enough, and the rest of you won't. But there was a horse height show,
Oh, yeah.
and my parents were with that, and I was a trunk baby. So I've been in every continental state in the United States, but I was only 2 or 3 years old, and all I remember are hotel rooms and music stands on the stage, and being with the musicians. And they did a radio show, and they did Jack Benny. They wouldn't let me in because I was a little kid and I'd make noise. So my babysitter, I don't know if any of you remember the Jack Benny show, but you remember Rochester.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, he was my babysitter. He sat with me outside the studio on the steps.
You're kidding.
No, I had a question for Diana too. How far are you from Wrigley Field?
I can get on the red line and be there on the subway in 10 minutes.
Because
If I walk, it'll take me about maybe 30 minutes to get there.
I'm a baseball fan, and that's one place I've always wanted to go.
Robert, if you'd said you were a Sox fan, I would have to not talk to you anymore.
Oh no, I've been a Dodger fan since they moved to LA in '59, and we beat the Sox in '59 series. And this other kid and I were the only kids from California. I was living in Kansas City after my mother remarried, and we were the only 2 kids from California. And I remember we were running around celebrating on the playground when the Dodgers beat the Sox. But I've had a lifetime of travel. I just don't remember it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm the same way. My parents were broke as hell, but we had relatives in a bunch of different states, and we'd pack up the green Ford Econoline van that Dad put different seats in the back for, and we'd take off and we'd just drive until we got there. And so I know exactly that feeling. I think I've been to 48 states, but a good percentage of that was before I was 5 years old. So I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I did go to Brazil about in the late night, around 2000, and it's quite an experience. I had a friend there that I stayed with, but they told me, don't wear anything that identifies you as an American, because they had, you get kidnapped. And but the country is beautiful, like the view from the Corcovado, where the big Christ is. Spectacular view. It makes San Francisco look like nothing. San Francisco Bay. I mean, Guanabara Bay is incredible. It's just a beautiful country. I spent a week at a private beach north of Sao Paulo. My friends were from Sao Paulo, and if you think New Yorkers and LA dislike each other, or San Francisco and LA, Sao Paulo and Cariocas in Rio, they hate each other. In fact, we did a mockingly driving to Rio from Sao Paulo. The friends that I were with, we all practiced our Carioca accents, mocking them. But anyway, that's my experience. So
nice. Hey, Gary, you haven't gone anywhere, and you're hoping you might be able to go to the Azores. What was a pre-pandemic trip? What was your last pre-pandemic trip that you said, wow, if I'd known this was going to be my last trip for a while, I would have done it differently?
I wouldn't have done it differently. My last trip was to Portugal, mainland Portugal. I was there for the board meeting for SATW, and I just basically took a week and a half by myself. I rented a car and just ran around Portugal for a while, visiting old monasteries and churches and such, which is kind of what I do anyhow when I travel. So it was in the news about that time already. It's just that everyone kind of thought it was just in China back then. This was in February. Right. And I actually might have had it. I don't know. The first week in March when I got back, I was sick for like a week. And I didn't put 2 and 2 together that maybe that's what I had. And I still don't know if I had. I could have just had the plain old normal flu, but Yeah, I always kinda
had
live
it,
like it's
I
not.
actually had it the last week of January, first week of February, and I went and had the test and found out that we had it. But I had it and I was living in New York. I was in New York at the time.
Did I see you then? Are you Jesus? I
It
did.
was right at, yeah, it was right after that, Scotty.
So
Yeah.
you had it then?
Yeah. Yep.
We were hugging then. You
Yeah.
were
Yeah. Who knew?
a little. You probably gave it to 100 people in that bar you packed for me.
Yeah, probably did. Yeah.
I did
Probably
not
did.
know. I did
Yeah,
not have it. I had the antibody and I did not have it. Antibody test. Yeah. So I'm absolutely fascinated just sitting here listening to everyone's travel experience. You make it seem like travel is going to be possible again. It
is going to be possible. It's, gonna be different. It's always different, but it's without question, it's going to be possible. Without question. We might do it differently. I mean, I might decide, you know, like from a business perspective, less than the plane, maybe I'm going to go get one of these little minivan outfitted a little bit better and then start driving a little bit more. I think you're going to start seeing people do things a lot differently.
Yeah, road trips for sure. Diana, you had something you want to say.
Well, I have 2 trips planned. I'm going to Phoenix, Scottsdale, right after Thanksgiving, and I'm flying on United. Oh no, I'm flying on American. I try to give them all a little chance for me. And in December, I'm going back to Sun Valley, and I'm going on United only because it goes nonstop. I go Chicago, Sun Valley, and it's 3 hours instead of like a 6 or 7 hour day and stopping in Salt Lake.
Right.
So, and I'm not afraid to go. Maybe I'm stupid, but, and I know I'm old because Scott tells me that all the time.
You are old. You're 83. That's old.
I'm not 83. I'm 82.
That's
and I'm going
old.
to be 82 next year because 2020 is a washout. So no gets older. Yeah.
Yeah. I stopped wishing people happy birthday this year because it's like,
there's no point.
It just wasn't going to happen. So I'm if I wish somebody happy birthday, it's really early for next year. That's the only way I'm doing it. Yeah.
My birthday was actually
really
March 11th.
fascinating that my
Pandemic,
mom. But my mom,
I'm sorry. What was that, Laura?
I'm saying I'm finding it really fascinating. My mom, you know, she traveled here. She's got 2 more trips planned. For me, it's an adventure to go to the grocery store or the post office. I mean, that is as far as I've gone, other than the hiking trails like outside our door. Although when she got here in July, she called me because Ava screwed up her rental car. And I'm like, well, I'll come to the airport and pick you up. So I drive down there with our 4 dogs. I take one out to go meet her at the gate. And we walk to the car. I put her suitcase in. And then I looked at her. I said, I haven't had a stranger in my car. I'm like, I don't know that I want to let my mom in my car. Should I leave her out like in the parking lot? It's like the weirdest feeling because I'm like, what do I do? Like it's my mom, but she's kind of a stranger and she just went through 2 airports. But I let her, it all worked out.
She lets me go out a little bit. So
Is anyone else as surprised as I was about when this hit? And they said, wash your hands. And there were so many people talking about washing your hands. And it's like it was something new that had been invented.
Yeah.
That still has me perplexed. Okay. That like, what the hell were you people doing before? And I don't want you around me anymore. You know?
Yeah. No, I mean, my wife and I have been talking about how whether or not the flu season will not be as bad because everybody's actually doing the things we were supposed to be doing all along, you know, actually washing our hands and, you know, covering our mouths when we cough and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm with you for sure on that. I'm going to extend the question out then. If I guess 2 questions. One would be, is there some trip you had right before? What was your last trip right before all this hit? But then I also want to follow up with that question, which is if we were pre-COVID right now and somebody said you're not going to be able to travel for 6 months, what pops into your mind if you're going to have your last travel for 6 months to a year, what's that place you want to go? So first, were there any other good trips that were pre-COVID that were right before this hit that you thought this is great? Heidi's, you're shaking your head. I think you're muted.
He's muted.
Oh, I think you're muted.
Hold on,
Sorry.
It's okay.
I thought I unmuted myself, but I guess I didn't. Yeah, I was supposed to be in Switzerland in May. And kind of a funny story, the May before I was in Lebanon, and I spent 3 weeks in Lebanon and then Cairo. And I remember flying back over the Swiss Alps and looking out the window going, this is where I want to go next. And then I had the opportunity to this year. And of course, COVID hit. And it was Maren Rudolph. It was her travel classic. 3 weeks in Lebanon. 3 weeks. Yeah, it was actually a belly dance intensive. It wasn't a work trip. It was a personal trip. Of course, sold some stories out of it because, you know, that's what we do. But I was like, okay, I kind of want to go to Switzerland. And then it got canceled. And that was one of the biggest disappointments of this year because I have traveled all over the world except for Europe. I have never been here except for the Azores. Is about the closest I've been. And I was so looking forward to it. I was going to go hot air ballooning over the Alps, for God's sakes, you know? And if somebody had told me in January that I wouldn't be able to travel in 6 months,
Or for the next 6 months.
and it's still, I mean, it is like I am now. It blows my mind. I'm like, what do you mean Americans aren't allowed in 90% of the world? What are you talking about? You know, so luckily there are a lot of beautiful places in the U.S. I've been going to, and because I specialize in outdoor travel and adventure travel, it's been relatively easy not to be unsafe. You know what I mean?
Right.
So hiking like Savannah. And Savannah, by the way, are you the one that's never been to Big Bend in Texas? Because I
have not, and Gary also has not. We both have not.
Okay, well, both of you. I live in Oklahoma. I'm in Texas all the time. Let's plan this because Big Bend is beautiful.
Oh, I love it.
Now, Gary, just so you know, if you guys plan this, just so you know, you're going to be going with two women who tend to hike naked. So just so you know.
I don't even like hiking, but I'm in.
And actually, I think I found another great topic. I'm relaunching the Inappropriate Traveler podcast we do, and I think having the two of you on at the same time would be an excellent.
I think it would be great.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
At least give him one of Scotty's vest or something every once in a while. Just something.
Jim Louderback
you're not
just
supposed
joined
to
us.
wear a vest.
Hey, Jim, where are you right now?
What's going on, Scott? I'm actually out on the beach here in Pacifica, California.
Oh, nice.
Hello.
Yeah, you're not far away.
Pacifica. I used to live right up the beach of Pacifica. That's awesome.
Yeah, I live over there in Pedro Point, if you remember it.
Oh yeah, I do. Absolutely. I remember I bought my house back then. Somebody said, "What are you going to do about the fog?" I said, "What fog?" Because I bought my house almost like sight unseen one sunny day, and little did I know that was one of 2 sunny days of the year at Pacifica. So
yeah, in the tech industry, we call that buying the demo.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, it's funny.
I'm also here in Pacifica. You might recognize the pier behind me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh,
Nice.
hi.
Yeah,
I'm
everyone
actually
know
in
Jim,
Padre
by the
Island,
way?
Texas, so I'm on the beach too.
Yeah, she's in the beach in South Padre.
Does everyone know a little bit about Jim? He was one of the original Tech TV guys, and
No.
I remember watching them all the time.
Okay, Jim, give a 2-sentence bio for yourself so people know who you are.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I helped start up a cable network called Tech TV. Was editor-in-chief PC Mag. Ran an online video company called Revision 3, and now I run the biggest set of online video events around the world called VidCon. Unfortunately, we can't do events around the world. So.
Holy shit, you're kind of a big deal, aren't you?
Nah, I'm just hanging on the beach with the doggies.
Well, you guys will appreciate this. Those of you who are in Pacifica, we are doing a Inappropriate Traveler podcast next week, I believe, up at Sam's Castle.
Oh, cool.
You know, because we want to highlight
Awesome.
that.
I did a video on it. It's sweet.
Yeah, but at some point, At some point it was a brothel. At some point it was a speakeasy. At some point it was all these things. So I think we'll be able to find some interesting history for the podcast, but we love it up there. I'm just up the road in San Francisco. We need to like have a socially distant chat sometime.
Definitely. Come down to the beach.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Jim, I'm going to ask you a question that I put out for everybody else, which is if we were in pre-COVID times right now, and somebody said, you're not going to be able to travel for the next 6 months to a year, where would you go? What would you make your last trip?
I think what I was planning on with my friend Jordan, first name Jordan, not last name, was going back to Tasmania. He'd never been, and I was talking up the beauty and the hiking, and I know you guys talked about hiking earlier. The beaches, the wine, the food, the clean air, which is much more important to me now than it was a month ago. So I think I'd go back to Tasmania just because I want to take my friend Jordan there.
That's great. That's great. I've never been, and I've been to Australia, but I've never been to Tasmania. And I've run a number of stories on it when I was the travel editor at the Chronicle, but I always look at the stories and go, wow, I should get down there one of these days. Oh, don't worry. There's plenty of time.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you still can.
yeah. I'm sure we probably all will.
Spud, you say this about travel. I got to tell you, I have never been, I live between New York and South Dakota. I have a ranch in South Dakota. And right now, I haven't been home this much in decades. And I'm absolutely loving it. I'm absolutely loving being in one place, not going places. I do it, when you say miss the travel, I know that at some point we're going to. But while I'm here in this moment, I'm enjoying what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and spending time with my wife, seeing my grandkids, doing things, watching eagles fly, outside my door. I mean, everything. And it's been the most spiritual time I've had in a long, long time. What do I miss things? Would I want to go? Oh yeah. Let me go to Ireland. Let me go to Italy. Let me go here. Let me go here. But I'm okay with it right now. And and so I'm reliving the things like, oh, where do I want to go when we can go? And what will I do? And those kinds of things. And I would probably do them differently. And I think that's a cool thing for almost every one of us. It's changing us, I think, for the better in a lot of regards of the things that we appreciate more. And and for that's a blessing that's come out of this for a lot of us.
Well, I know that there's a lot of, and that's a great point. I'm glad you made that. I know with me, when I was travel editor, I covered the whole world except for San Francisco. I've lived here for 28 years, and there's so much of it I don't know. And so leaving the Chronicle and then this has given me the incredible opportunity to actually be a tourist in my own backyard, to learn about my own backyard, all the stuff that I didn't know. So much so, I'm working on a travel resource about San Francisco for inbound because I'm suddenly learning all this great stuff. Does anybody
the nice thing for you is you can do it all without any tourists around.
Right. Exactly. Is anybody else here sort of learning more about their own backyard? Diana.
Yeah, I've lived here my whole life in Chicago, and I've traveled quite a bit. And, I've been all over Southeast Asia. I love South America. I love the Middle East. I love Europe, but that's more like being here. But since I've been holed up in my house, and I live in downtown Chicago, in the Gold Coast, I walk. And I walk 10 to 19,000 steps a day. I stay away from Lincoln Park for a long time. It was closed, as was the lake. So I'm very knowledgeable in 3 zip codes, in the Gold Coast zip codes. I can tell you what stores are boarded up. I can tell you what hotel. The Peninsula just opened because the doorman and I talked several times a week. The restaurants that are open and closed, the bars that are open and closed. It's been fascinating. I thought I knew my own city. I've lived in 2 zip codes my whole life. I know a heck of a lot more now, and I love it. And now I like to walk alone because then I can do what I want to do. And it's really, I find Chicago is a fascinating city despite the looting, the crime, and the everything, which is right around me.
Right. No, that's amazing. And that's great to hear. Savannah, you had your hand up. Was there something that you wanted to add to that?
Oh, well, I
learning
love
about your
the walking
backyard.
piece just because I think it's awesome. And I think that we're all, again, it goes back to that slow cadence. We've all started moving differently and walking around, and the things I noticed in my neighborhood, all my neighbors are growing corn. I didn't know anyone even grew corn. Like looking at people's home gardens and stuff through the window, and the signs, and just the community aspect of this, I actually find really endearing. But I have to share, so since we're talking about pandemic trips you would have done differently,
Yeah.
I don't know if you all saw my set change. That's the New Zealand flag behind us. So I run a community building agency here out of Pacifica, but half of my business is in New Zealand. So I was in New Zealand in March when this all became a pandemic. And I made the decision to get on one of the last flights out of the country. I have a relationship with Air New Zealand, and actually through a bunch of chaos, I was going to stay there through this because I thought it was going to be short. That's funny. I thought it might be 6 to 12 weeks. When I started to realize that was total buffoonery. I have an at-risk mother and I'm an only child, and she's solo. So I had to come back to American soil to make sure that I could be here for her.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that getting on a plane from Auckland, New Zealand to San Francisco, California on March 20th was one of the most surreal days of my life. I went from an open country, they hadn't shut down yet, and I mean, even still, they're leading the way in a lot of different capacities, but they had not shut down, and I arrived here to our zombie apocalypse. And I would not change my decision because I did the right thing for my family, and I'm glad that I had spent 6 weeks in New Zealand before this all happened, and hopefully we'll be back down there as soon as they let us heathens back in. But it's not about changing it. Like, I think what I've found for myself, and I actually like how we're all interpreting this question a little bit. For me, what I've found is an immense feeling of gratitude for every trip I took, for every yes I said, for every crap, this is a lot to jam in right now, but I love this lifestyle and I'm just going to do it. Because, you know, it is going to come back. I agree. We're all going to be travelers again. We're all still travelers. But I am just so grateful for every endeavor and every video I ever got to make and all the things we've gotten to do. Because when I think about folks who are maybe getting to a stage where they could afford it, or where their career was going to make it privy, or they're going to achieve that dream, and to not have had that, even that taste, like, we can go back, we can look at photos, we can listen to music, we can make food. There's all these things that can bring us back to our virtual and powerful experiences. And so I think to the point of the cadence, I love hiking here in Pacifica. It's bloody beautiful. I couldn't be more grateful for my beach house right now. But on the flip side, I think there's a lot of gratitude for every memory and community we've gotten to become a part of on the road.
Yeah, that's great. I know
what I miss the most, is seeing all my friends here in San Francisco, especially. I haven't been to San Francisco in the longest period of time. I think if I could travel, it would be coming to visit you. I would love to do that. In fact, if you would let me visit, but it's the people, it's the hugs, it's the talking to a stranger, it's excited talking close to someone and maybe getting spit in my face a little bit without freaking out. I mean, I miss people. I just miss people, and I'm concerned that the groove on the record has changed so significantly that my desire to be with people has lessened a little bit, and I might lose that connectivity, and people will lose that connectivity. Even if it's just for a period of time, we have dented the universe as a result of this. It has taken a shift in some capacity. I don't know. I want to be respectful, Spud. You did say you had to leave a little early, so you're welcome to continue if you'd like.
All I was going to say is I think you're absolutely right. On a positive side to it, I think a lot of what we've been talking about, though, today is the counterbalance to what you're talking about. Some of those effects will be negative. Some of them will be, guess what? Maybe I don't feel like being around people as much. But there will be something that you learned about yourself, or about the places you love to go, or about the place you live, or things like that. I think it's all yin and yang. Everybody learns something from
I
that.
learned that the garbage doesn't empty itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I learned how to use the vacuum cleaner, and damn those Dyson people. I had no idea how dirty my apartment was. It was bad news. Was there anybody else who, if you could make a quick last trip or just a last trip before you couldn't go anywhere for 6 months to a year, where would you go? Gary? Robert?
To be completely honest with you, I traveled a lot in the last 14 years. Okay.
Yes, you have.
And for people listening to this, I don't think you really understand just how much that is. Like, I didn't have a host for a decade. This has been a godsend in a lot of ways for me, because since this started, this is the least amount I've traveled in a decade and a half. I've lost 50 pounds. I have completely rebuilt my business from the struts up. And then I had to, because I lost 98% of my income from all this, right? It just all vanished. It just all disappeared. So it's forced me, you know, I can sit and pity myself, or it's like, okay, what am I going to do? And completely rebuilding it and preparing for 6 to 12 months from now, when things are going to be in a position where people can start to travel again, to take advantage of that. And, you know, I have a community of really, really well-traveled people that follow me, and to make the use of that. And I even started a new podcast that's a daily scripted show.
Daily podcast.
That's more work than I put into anything in ages, but I'm really loving it. And I've never been able to do these things.
Plug it.
What?
Plug it. What's the name?
No, everything, everything, everywhere, daily. It's it's not a travel show per se. It's a history show, and it's about stories of people, places, and things that I've learned from a decade and a half of traveling. And it's
brilliant.
all sorts of random subjects.
It's brilliant. I listened to 4 or 5 in a row, and they're not long, but there's some often really obscure, bizarre thing that you didn't know or never thought about before. And I think they're great. So what you're saying, Gary, is you, given the choice, you would just, if somebody said you are not allowed to travel for 6 to 12 months, you'd say, you know what, I'm happy here. I'm just.
For me, this was like, you know, if you're an alcoholic and someone came to you and said, hey, sorry, the beer truck just crashed. This has been something that has helped me, because it's let me focus kind of on my life. I'm swimming 1 kilometer every day. You know, I was walking up to 50,000 steps a day before I had to move.
Wow.
Whoa.
And I could never, I was never doing these things because I was always on the road. And just from a personal and a business standpoint, it's really, really changed everything that I'm doing. And yeah, I'm going to travel again. It's going to be an important part of my life, but this has allowed me to kind of do the things that normal people get to do. And, you know, I've been on the other end of it for so long.
Yeah, no, of course, I could totally understand it. Hey, Jim, those your dogs?
Yeah, I was going to say I spent a lot more time with my dogs in the last 6 months than I have in the past. I've definitely walked a lot with these guys.
Nice.
Which, you know, has its benefits, right?
Sure.
Benefits of health as well, like you're talking about.
Yeah, that and mental health. I mean, probably the biggest hit we took during the COVID was our cat died. Our cat of, like 15 years. And I was never an animal person, didn't grow up with pets, so I didn't think it would hit me that hard. But when we're in isolation like this, having that third, person, third being, creature, whatever, we took that for granted, big time. And so, yeah, having the pets right now for a lot of people is a godsend, I'm sure. There's Savannah's dog. What's his or her name?
This is Martini. She's a sweet little 9-year-old rescue mutt, and really, I hear you on the pet front. I feel like some folks have kids, some folks have partners. I have my dog. Our little friends are such buddies to us right now, and such incredible entertainment. And this is totally off topic, but one of my favorite silver linings, since we've talked a lot about this in the last few minutes of the pandemic, is that so many shelters are being cleared because people have time to cuddle the dogs and adopt them and train them and now we're all going to work remote. And I really find this to be such a beautiful trend that's been happening. I've had Teenie for almost 10 years, and she's been to 15 states with me. We did a 3D printing road trip across America from California to New York and a whole bunch of stuff. But getting to spend this quality time and see so many other people get to have the joy of pets, no matter what they're. Oh my gosh, Scott, you look awesome right now. Is just a really special silver lining. Yeah. I can't say I've done quite the lifting that Scott's doing with the poodles right now, but this is adorable.
Yeah,
I know actually. Heidi, oh, go on.
I was just gonna say, I know Heidi has dogs because she sent me an email one time that says, "I have to go. My dogs are dragging a police cruiser down the street," something like that.
I'm actually new to dogs. I've always been a cat person. So we have a Husky Great Pyrenees blend and a Lab Pit mix that got 2 years ago. But actually one of the most recent stories I did was about how to adjust your pet who has been used to having you around all the time during COVID to going back to work and things like that. Because that's the thing. A lot of people adopted COVID pets and, have been around their pets for so much. And then suddenly they have to go back to work or what have you. And, the pets are going, where are you? Why aren't you around all the time? So, but I was, like Spud was talking about, about how do you adjust during COVID in writing as a travel writer. I would say last of my 5 big stories have been about Oklahoma, which is the state I live in. And it's kind of a joy because I get to rediscover this wacky, crazy state. And everybody kind of has an interest now because of Tiger King. Yay. Yeah. Which, by the way, I used to interview that guy when he was running for governor, and he's as crazy as it is in the show. But I
believe it.
Yeah, I think being homebound, you get to discover a lot of great things about, familiarity breeds contempt, that sort of thing, and you get to rediscover where you live as a wonderful travel piece.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm going to pass the reins for this back to Scott, and Scott will of course make sure to remind everybody to tell people where you can be found, because I want to follow all of you that I'm not already.
I do too.
I have a podcast called The Inappropriate Traveler. It's on iTunes and I don't know, some other things. All of it is season 1 from last year, including a fabulous one with Gary Arndt. And future ones, I take it, with Savannah and Heidi. But that's where you can find me most of the time. So I'm going to take off, but I want to thank you all for participating in this. Scott, over to you.
Thanks so much. Well, I want to say that I really appreciate you doing this. We stay on time here. So we have literally 3 minutes left. So I'm going to go, anyone who wants to say any passing words or anything at all, or plug anything they're doing, feel free to raise your hand and start talking.
I have a question for Jim. Now, you had the Techzilla and the Kevin Rose and all those shows?
Yeah, Dig Nation, Techzilla, all those shows.
Oh, I love Techzilla. I watched it every week with Patrick.
Well, Patrick Norton has now moved to St. Louis, so he's living in St. Louis, and trying to figure out what's next for him. So, but he's a great guy.
Oh yeah, it was a great show.
Well, go ahead, Heidi, please.
I would like to say I just went and creeped and around your site, and I, for one, am really appreciative for the pocket equality for women, because that's actually a thing.
Well, please pick out an item or 2 or 3 that you'd like and send me an email.
Women's clothing do not have pockets.
No, they don't.
Reasonable. So thank you. I'm a huge advocate for pocket equality for women's clothing.
Hey, Scott, Scott, I'm going to do a quick demo for you. Ready?
Yeah. Hold on.
Okay, so it's all.
I thought you were in your SUV. I saw that.
It's also really good if you have to go around with your dogs, because if you see, let's see, like right here, I've got, that's where the poop bags are. Oh wait, what's over here? There are the poop bags. The balls are down there. The treats are over there. Oh, you can see more poop bags coming out. So I have to say, yeah, they're good for guys too.
That is awesome.
That's
Very
funny.
thoughtful.
Where are the balls again, Jim? Are they down there?
Those are always in special pockets, just so you know. So those are pockets you're not selling. There you go.
Well, yeah,
I own
as far as I know
everything.
that-
I own everything Scotty's ever made. I love it. I own multiple items of it. I give them away as gifts all the time. Dude, it's flipping awesome. I love it.
We all
Well,
love Scott.
we are about the 1 hour mark. I just want to thank each and every one of you. You guys are fantastic. This is a new format for us. If anyone wants to attend it's Thursday night at 5 o'clock. This is what it is. The Diana and Scott show, talk travel, and a bunch of other shit. And when a man talks about his old lady and it's not his wife, it's Diana.
I love it. Scott, thank you for having us. Thank you for bringing us all together. I'm going to throw some links in the chat about me and Martini and how to watch some of our content. If you want to see my nature nudes, those are at SavvySavvy. And I just launched a new transparent community where you can be vulnerable called the What the Fuck Club, the WTF.club. So come check it out.
And we'll include a wrap up of this in our next newsletter to 200,000 people and send you guys all links. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it. Have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.